There's no shortage of Metroidvanias on the market currently, which is why when I set out to make this video and point out some games that I think Metroid fans would like, I shortened my focus quite a bit to specifically Metroidvanias that are both sci-fi and more focused than, you know, the stuff that really evokes Metroid specifically. That said, there's a few games that I'm not going to cover here just because I feel like they're too obvious or I've already covered them too many times on this channel. Those being Axiom Verge, Gato Roboto, and Ghost Song. I feel like those games just are a little too obvious, a little bit too big, so obviously check those out if you're a Metroid fan. So I'm going to cover stuff that's maybe just a little bit less well known. So in this video, I'm going to go over 8 games that are already out. If you're looking for a Metroid-style Metroidvania, then I think these are pretty good options for you. Then after I go over those, I'm going to point out 6 more games that are actually unreleased, and I think they look like they could be pretty promising for a Metroid fan. Alright, let's hop right into the very first one here, which is Psycron. This is a very bare bones, but perfectly fits the fundamentals of what Metroid is. It's got a great atmosphere and the movement is really good. This one's also a pretty short game, so if you just want a bite-sized little bit of Metroid, Psychron's a pretty good choice for you. Then next up we have Astronite, which is another Gato Roboto-esque kind of monochrome take on a Metroid game. This is another one that is a short and concise game. It's got tight controls. It is a little bit more difficult than a lot of the other games on this video, but it is tough but fair. The next one up here is one that is a personal favorite of mine in this video, and that is BIOTA. It's another one that has a very minimalistic kind of Game Boy aesthetic, but I think the things that make this game unique are pretty interesting. It has this really neat twist on the upgrade system. It's kind of similar to A Link Between Worlds actually, where you buy all of the different upgrades that you need to use to progress through the game. And the major hurdle here is your wallet size basically, so you need to upgrade how much of this like scrap material that you find around the environment you can collect and use to buy the different upgrades. In addition to its really neat look, it also has an incredible soundtrack. It has this like synth tune kind of soundtrack to it. It ended up reminding me a lot of like John Carpenter's scores, so that is one that I really loved. Then we have Rebel Transmute, which is basically the most customizable Metroidvania that I've seen. There's over 50 different optional upgrades that can really change the way that the game works and feels, and that allows you to really make it to what you want it to be. It has an NES Metroid style look to it, but obviously kind of enhanced more than what that was, and that really allows the world to be very vibrant and have a lot of versatile maps. Next up is Outbuddies DX. This is one that if you look at the Steam reviews, it might kind of make you a little bit wary because the mixed reviews, but I feel like that a lot of those reviews came from before its DX upgrades that fixed a lot of the problems with this game. Basically, this is a Metroid-style plot, but it has a Lovecraftian underwater kind of twist to it. But I'd say gameplay-wise, the real cool thing about this one is its buddy system, or, well, you might kind of know it more from like Symphony of the Night as like the familiar system, where these little familiars can, you know, operate on their own, but while you play the game, you also can control them with the right stick, so you have a little bit more agency over what the familiar is doing. And if you really want, you can have a co-op buddy actually control that little familiar, and I think that's a pretty cool little system to add to a Metroidvania. Then there's Rex Rocket, which is a very hard Metroidvania in the style of like Mega Man. It's like Mega Man hard. But if you're into those NES style hard games, this one here is a real treasure because it delivers all the stuff you would expect from a game of that era, but in Metroidvania form. Also, a lot of the writing here is lighthearted and kind of silly, so it's kind of fun to have something with a little bit of levity to it. Moving on to Turbo Kid, which is actually based on a movie that came out a few years ago, but now we have a video game adaptation of it, and it is really something special. Think of this as a BMX Metroidvania game. It has a sort of Trials-style traversal to it because you're using a BMX bike to get around the world. One thing though that you should keep in mind is this is a very bloody, over-the-top, silly kind of game. It's very much like the movie in that way. So make sure you're the right kind of audience for this one. Then for the last game that I want to talk about that is already out, it is Transiruby. And this one is admittedly a little bit more slashy than Pew Pew, but that said, you do get a gun in this game. It just happens to be a gun that isn't necessarily meant for combat specifically. The gun that you use is a gun that freezes things in place, basically making pieces of the environment and enemies into platforms that allow you to get around the world. This game is really just a chill experience overall. It's not too hard and the vibes are just relaxing, cool experience. So this is one I think you should check out if you're looking for a breezy sort of game like this. Alright, now we're on to the games that are not out yet, but I think that you should keep an eye on and maybe add a few to your wish list. Starting with ORB, or Offensive Rolling Bot. Basically, it's the Morph Ball game. It's a Metroidvania game that looks to be just pretty much a Morph Ball focused Metroidvania, and I think that could be pretty cool. You basically play as a Star Wars droideka, and that is kinda cool, so make sure you check that one out. Then we have Rat Trap, which is a really cool hand-drawn, art-style, cartoony Metroidvania game that also looks pretty similar to God of Roboto, but in this case, you're playing as a rat. The Steam page pretty much promises everything that you'd expect from a game like this, but I think the style alone here puts this game above the bar for a lot of other Metroidvanias. Then we have Hippoxxus, which is another sci-fi Metroidvania that's pretty standard looking, honestly, but it does have this cool grappling hook, and I'm a pretty big sucker for a grappling hook. Yeah, this one promises to have a lot of unique weapons and stuff, so hopefully this one delivers on that. Moving on to Star Heart's Launch Point, and just look at the animation in this game. It'll blow you away just staring at it. It's really cool for this NES style game. It's really, really impressive. Basically, this game revolves around intergalactic rebels that rescue alien critters, kind of like, you know, Super Metroid, save the animals kind of thing, you know. I see what they're doing here. But it also has boss battles and a bunch of mysteries. This one just looks super impressive from every aesthetic point, and I can't wait for this one to release. Alright, and then for the final two, they're a little bit more hardcore than Metroid is, but heck, Metroid got like Mother Brain in it. It's not afraid of being a little gross, so these are just M-rated versions of Metroid in my mind. But the first one is the Red Selene, which credits itself as being super inspired by Dead Space, which itself was inspired by Alien, which also inspired Metroid, so I think that it's a cycle that kind of works for this video. But the Red Selene looks incredible if you're into survival horror kind of games, and also Metroidvanias, so make sure you keep an eye on that one. And then the other one is Moadra, and it also looks like a super amped up, kind of edgier take on the Metroid formula, and I'm super into it. The main character honestly reminds me a lot of like the Mortal Kombat robots, like Cyrax, you know, but that's besides the point. I think this one looks really, really cool and super impressive, so make sure you wishlist that and any of the other games in this video if you're into neat looking Metroidvanias. Alright, and that was my video on games that I think Metroid fans should check out. This is one of my favorite genres, so if you have any suggestions in the comments, leave them down below. Yeah, I also have a lot of other videos that are about Metroidvanias, so I'm sure you'll find something interesting on this channel if you're into the same kind of stuff that I am. And yeah, if you like this video, do all the YouTube stuff, subscribe, like, do all that stuff. And also, I'd really appreciate it if you shared this video. YouTube's not really been putting my videos in front of that many people lately, so it would be really awesome if you could share this video around, like put it on a Reddit, maybe on your Discord. I would genuinely appreciate it so much. But yeah, thank you for watching. Thank you for watching. Thank you for watching. Thank you for watching.